Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Educator Colin's Snap channel. Whee! How you doing? So today we're going to be asking a question that I get asked a lot. Should I pick Thanos? Should I pick Galactus? Should I pick Kang? It's a fairly common question. You've got 6,000 tokens. You don't know what to buy, and you're looking for advice for which one is the one I want to get first. Right? I definitely understand it. My quick answer right now is that I would still think Thanos is the most competitively viable. So even though Thanos got nerfed recently, I've been trying to make this video for a while, but the problem was I knew that Thanos was going to get changed in some way. So I wasn't, I don't have information on that. I didn't know if I made a video like this, I recommended Thanos, and then it got adjusted. Would it be the wrong advice after the adjustment? So I had to wait for the patch to come out. The patch to come out, I still think Thanos is the strongest overall. However, there's a lot more flexibility in which of the big bads you want to collect first. So if you're just looking for, hey, what's the best? Go Thanos. But I think it's a lot closer now where it used to be like, oh, you have to really lean Thanos. Now I think there's a lot more freedom. So we're going to go over all the options and kind of talk about their benefits and maybe their downsides of going these directions. So if you actually want to know the answer, you want a much longer deep dive into the three big bads that we currently have, then you continue watching. And this video, no, it's not sponsored by anything. So first off, we have Thanos. Still strong, still powerful, still a really good card. A lot of games you didn't have Quinjet, right? You just didn't roll Quinjet. So it's not like the nerfs were, game breaking for Thanos. And yeah, Space Stone is slightly worse, I would say, but it's not the end of the world how it plays. And you still have a lot of the other broken stones did not get adjusted at all. So I still think this is a really, really strong deck. Some of the downsides is that it is hard to play. So it's not like, oh, I play this and I play this, or like Shuri, where I play Shuri, I play something else, right? It requires a lot of different maneuvers. You have to make a lot of decisions every game, every turn, and it requires thinking, and it's hard to play. So that's like the main downside, I would say, of Thanos decks. You can't just like casually brain off play a Thanos deck. You kind of have to be thinking about every single potential outcome that you could be playing with and all the things your opponents can do. So that's like the main downside. But the upside is it's strong and it has lots of flexibility. So there's so many cards you can play in Thanos decks. It's just a very flexible deck list that has a lot of options in how you want to really create a viable Thanos deck. So it's really still, I would say, the competitive king, but I think a lot of the other options are also fairly good. Now let's talk about Galactus. Whoops. So Galactus is, I would say, the funnest of the three. Now that's personal preference, but basically from what I've heard, like this is the one where people are like, ooh, if there's a person that cares about fun, Galactus is probably the one for you. You get to see the cool animation. You get to say kneel before Galactus or whatever people like to do, that kind of stuff. It's definitely a fun card to play with. Now, and it's also simplistic, which I would say is not necessarily a downside or an upside, right? Simplistic means like, okay, you do this, then you do this, and you play Galactus. And either that's your last turn or you win the turn after, right? So it has a very similar playstyle. Where with Thanos, there's a lot of things you have to be thinking about. Where with Galactus, there's not as much. So that one can be good for if you want to play, a casual game. You just want to, grind a couple of games out. When you're doing it with Thanos, it's a slog. You can't like look away from your board. You really have to pay attention with Thanos. Where with Galactus, you can be like, oh, there's an empty lane. I know what to do. So yeah, there's that. But the downside, I would say, is this is maybe the most predictable of the three that we're going to be discussing, even though we're going to be discussing more than three cards. but this is the most predictable card. If there's an empty lane, your opponent is, playing an empty lane, they're playing Thanos or Galactus synergy cards, so you kind of expect the Galactus coming. And because it's predictable, it's hard to get those like AQ games from a Galactus deck, because if you're winning, you're winning and your opponent knows you're winning, so it's hard for them to stay in. Now, it doesn't mean you can't stay in, but most good players are not going to give you 4 cubes. Most good players are not giving you 8 cubes, right? You're at best getting like 2, so 4 if you're lucky. So that's like the main downside here with this deck. But it's a strong deck. Like, I'm not saying you can't climb with this. You can definitely climb with this. You can definitely have a good time with it. I'm just saying, like, at the upper echelons, which is really what I'm concerned about, there are some issues in terms of that consistency. All right. Now, moving on, we have Kang. So this card, I would say the main downside for this card is it makes the game slower. Because Kang has such a long animation and you have to replay a turn, it's almost like you're playing 2 games or 1.5 games every time you drop down a Kang. And that just makes the game slower. So even though you might be like climbing with Kang, you're playing less games overall. So you might actually have a higher climbing speed if you're winning games on average, just playing something else than Kang, because you're going to be playing so much. However, this does prevent cube swings. So it's hard to lose 8 cubes with Kang. It actually is. And it's also very easy to win 2 cubes or 1 cube with Kang. That's the real like main power, I would say. I wouldn't say this is like a necessary card, and you are losing a card that you could be playing another like key piece in. So you are running a smaller deck list, and there's some advantages and disadvantages of that. But it's not always an advantage. And then another issue with Kang is it's better if you have all the other big bads already. It's not a card that wins games by itself, where Thanos can and Galactus can. Kang cannot win a game by itself. It needs other pieces to really do well with. So if you don't have a lot of cards, I would not recommend this as like your first big bat to pick up. No, it's not going to give you a win condition by itself. Now, it might give you safety in the deck you're playing, right? So if you were not sure whether you should leave or not, right, this will give you that ability to swing the cube rate. But I don't think it's going to make you win much more games than you would have if you were just playing normally. And then it's probably the most flexible card, because this thing can be put in like almost any deck that you really want to play with. So that's another big plus. But once again, you need a lot of decks, or you need a lot of good cards. And then another downside, which will get fixed, is there's bug issues. So this card can make your game crash very often. So you might have a game you're going to win, but then the game crashes. And because the game crashes, you lose that, or something else happens. So that is something you have to be aware of. Hopefully it gets fixed soon, but that is something that does happen. The game does crash when you play Kang a lot. So, be aware of that. All right. Now, so those are the 3 big bads, but there is another one coming that I did want to talk about. I always do the extra mile. We do have High Evolutionary. So this is coming in May theoretically. So I do have the asterisk. Like, they could change it. It could come later, but it's currently planned for May. This does seem strong. It seems really cool. You're turning all your no ability cards into cards with cool abilities, and it's something to save up for. So I'm not saying don't buy any of the big bads now. I'd still say if you want a big bad, get it. But you should be aware that this is most likely a big bad coming, and it is something you should probably be saving up for if you want to play with it. So I'm not going to go into the card itself. If you don't know about this card, then look it up or watch a previous video where I did talk about it in the data mines. But good chance it's a big bad. This is something you could save up for. So overall, I want the main takeaway, for me at least, is you can pick what you like. So you gain a lot more tokens per month. It's very likely you're going to be able to get all of these cards in a reasonable time. It's not going to take multiple months, 6 months to get a Series 5 card. That's pretty much gone with this current token system. So you're going to have a lot of rationale or reasons to just pick up a card if you're going to play with it. So my general advice is if you would play this card immediately, then you can pick it. And then just pick it, have fun, right? The games have fun. So just, if you can play the card immediately, pick it up and move on from there. And then, of course, I'm going to get the comments, right? Since this is so close to the Shuri changes. Should I get Shuri? Yes, you can get Shuri. Shuri's still fine, right? So if you want to get it. So Shuri's going to be dropped down next month, right? So it's going to go down from 3,000 tokens, well, to free because you can't buy Series 3s anymore. But let's say you have a ton of Series 3 still left to collect. You actually might want Shuri because if it drops down, then it's going to go into a pool that is going to be very hard to pick up, and you don't get to choose from the Series 3. It's still the rotation. So it might take you multiple days, maybe weeks before you see Shuri. So if you are actually not close to finishing Shuri Series 3 and you want to play Shuri, it actually might be better to take it now, where if you're close to Series 3 completion, well, then you don't really need it. If you don't want to play Shuri, you don't really need to get it early because it's eventually going to drop down to Series 3 next month, and then, you get it pretty quickly after that. So just want to talk about Shuri since I know I'm going to get questions like that, try to address that. So those are my thoughts on Thanos, Shuri, Thanos, Galactus, and Kang. Which ones I think you should prioritize. I think there's a lot of freedom here in what you want to pick, but most competitive right now is still Thanos. So hope that answered your questions for the people that clicked on this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves.
Educated calling snap. Once you watch him, you won't go back. He'll teach you tomorrow, snap. Your skills will be